What's going on, everybody? My name is Dr. Eric Krieger. We're here with the HealthFi podcast. I'm here with Sean, as well as Tristan, Mr. Bitcoin and Beef himself. Tristan, how you doing tonight? We're so excited to have you on.
I'm doing well, Eric. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome one, guys. I can't wait to delve in a little bit further with Tristan. But, for our listeners, Tristan, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, what got you into your journey.
Yeah, so I'm an engineer by trade, but really focused on, my passions on the side, which led me to writing a book in 2021 called Bitcoin and Beef. So I got really into health after suffering one too many concussions in college and had to go down the self-healing rabbit hole. So we can dive into that, but really what it took from me was my ability to live the life that I wanted to live and distrust in the traditional healthcare system. And really from there I just was convinced that there's so much we can tap into and so much that education that the average person in our society is not aware of. And then it simultaneously I was getting interested in crypto and then Bitcoin kind of 2020 and why that mattered so much since the macroeconomic environment was becoming so volatile and chaotic. And yeah, I realized I was really passionate about these two topics for kind of the same reason, that I wanted to be in direct control of my life and in the most two important aspects of my life, and everyone's life, which is your health and your wealth. And so I wanted to write some educational information on this that's pretty high level, or at least high level enough for people to understand how everything's connected and how they can better equip themselves for years to come, as kind of new things are just going to keep getting worse. And it's cool kind of already looking back here in 2023. I started writing the book 2 years ago, and things have certainly kind of become more magnified and more intense in these spheres of fiat, finance, banking, as well as the food system, red meat, regenerative agriculture. So yeah, it's really exciting stuff.
Oh, heck yeah, man. I think that's the journey all of us on this call have kind of gone down. We've been frustrated with traditional medicine, and take me through kind of that tipping point. I'm really interested to hear about that concussions. Was that playing sports? Was that, extreme things? What was the lead up to it? What were your biggest frustrations with, what we call that traditional medical system? And what were some of the biggest epiphanies you had in that journey into kind of more of that alternative medicine, or kind of the things that we're talking about here?
Yeah, for sure. So I played soccer, my whole life in high school and then in college, and, suffered a few concussions probably from there. But this last one, I didn't realize that I had suffered one, and I wasn't playing sports. I kind of just lost consciousness and hit my head. So then I ruined, the acute healing phase for a TBI, a mild TBI that's so important. And I just had lasting symptoms. So I had what, is called post-concussive syndrome, PCS, for over a year. Daily headaches every day, irritability, sensitive to noise, light, like your classic concussion symptoms. And I went, to the doctor, neurologist, like 3-4 months after, when I was still not feeling well. And he was like, and at that point, I wasn't totally sure what was wrong. I was pretty sure it was a concussion. And then he kind of confirmed that. And I was like, so happy in that moment. I was like, wow, now I know what's wrong. I can have a plan to attack this. But then in that next moment, I asked him, what can I do to heal and get better? And he was like, oh, just take it easy and try and get back into your normal routine. And that was it. I was like, oh, there's nothing else I can do, like exercise, vitamin therapy, like literally anything. He was like, no, just try and, get back in your routine, and, we'll check back in 1 to 2 months. And from there, I went, to being super excited about understanding what was wrong with my brain. And then, I was almost like immediately just depressed because I couldn't comprehend how a medical professional in this field can give no real advice, because that's what I was already trying to do. I was already trying to ease back in the routine, but I couldn't. I had this threshold of, brain stimulation where once I reached a certain point, I couldn't do anything else. I was sleeping 12 hours, 14 hours a night just to be able to finish coursework. I couldn't exercise. Went from a high functioning college athlete and engineering student to barely being able to walk across campus without being extremely fatigued and irritable. So pretty much I was just like, all right, fuck that. Like, I'm not going to listen to anything they say. And I had the summer coming up and maybe, I'll start feeling better. So I spent a summer kind of in Oregon, Portland, Oregon for an internship, which it was nice because I at least got kind of back in tune with nature, started camping and hiking. And I realized when I was out in nature, my symptoms were like so much less. Like I couldn't really exercise while I was in the city, during the week. But like if I was camping, totally disconnected from screens, internet and everything, I could like manage a hike or, go swimming in a lake and I would feel much better. So that led me to, just better mental state. And then I started like meditating, which really helped like my mental frame of mind. And from there, I'm a stubborn person, right? Like I wasn't just going to take like, this is the new normal for the rest of my life. There's no chance that was going to happen, especially after being, a very high functioning person. So from there, I just, went down the rabbit hole of consuming information. So I started listening to podcasts, started reading books, and, once you start down, you just become amazed at how many people have similar stories, actually even way more intense or way more, debilitating than your own. And that gives you even more confidence to move forward. And it was really empowering. And, from there, 6 months went by and I was starting to feel a lot better. I was, getting back into exercise, just fine tuning my diet, trying different supplements to, inhibit a brain healing journey. And yeah, I started feeling a lot better and graduated college. And, here we are 4 years later. I've just kind of been obsessed with keeping that optimal state. And now I think today I feel better than I ever did before. I was always decently healthy, but now I'm just so much more in tune with my health, and I feel like so much more free and liberated as a person to have this ability to do what I want when I want, push my body the way I want, and accomplish things at a high level because I was able to regain my health, and that's what it's all about. And I did this completely outside of the traditional medical system, purely by consuming information, mostly that was free online or, via books and YouTube videos and podcasts. So I'm sure you guys are all aligned with that, but it's really about just getting back control of your life. And if your health is bringing you down, you're going to be down in so many other aspects, even if you don't think you are. It bothers me how many people, like they're pretty intelligent, they're successful, but they kind of throw their health to the side, and eventually, it's going to catch up to them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was actually hit by a drunk driver about 10 years ago and, lost the ability to walk for several months and had to walk with a cane. And, the last thing they wanted to do was surgery. So they pushed that away and they just put me through physical therapy. And I kept telling them, I'm like, hey, this needs surgery. I'm not going to move this out and make it feel better. So they finally gave me surgery. And, I think that was the greatest and most difficult times of my life. It taught me so much. It made me grateful and I was allowed to grow. And I'm kind of in that same similar situation as, it was that situation that made me elevate so much to become my best self. So a quick follow-up question. If anybody out there has post-concussion syndrome, due to your independent research, what is a small summary that you could tell that could, give them hope and maybe some help?
Yeah, 100%. And I like how you frame that as well. It's really, I mean, this event, this concussion was the best thing that ever happened to me, but also simultaneously in the moment, the worst thing, right? Because it just completely changed the trajectory of my life. And now, we're here talking on a podcast to empower others to heal and kind of grow, which is just fantastic. So yeah, post-concussive healing is definitely, for me, it was, like I said, it was really a problem because I missed that acute, recovery phase. So it's imperative the first like 2 weeks after, a concussion to really understand that you don't want to get another one. You don't want to do really stupid things like over exercise or drink alcohol. So you should definitely avoid that immediately, which is exactly what I was doing. Oh, what I use, fine tuning your lifestyle habits, sleep, clean eating, of course. I mean, this goes without saying, but most people don't do it. And I experimented with a low carb diet kind of a year and a half after my injury. I went full keto for 4 months, and that helped me tremendously. And I'm not like a keto dogma guy, but I think for brain healing, it can be really powerful. You could also experiment with fasting, exogenous ketones, MCT oil, all that jazz. Certain supplements, DHA is very powerful for the brain, for healing. I took high potency fish oil when I was recovering, and that helped. Fish oil, you do have to be very careful because a lot of those are rancid. Now I don't take it. I just try and eat wild caught salmon or consume salmon roe. And there's other things. I use CBD because, like I said, I had daily headaches. So I took CBD, high potency CBD, every day for like 2 years, and that helped so much. I mean, just getting to a place where I didn't wake up with a headache every day. But now I pretty much rarely take it. I would maybe when I'm traveling or something happens, but almost never take it now. And yeah, there's a few other things I think that you can play around with. There's a million supplements out there, and I've probably tried most of them. But yeah, lion's mane, things like that, ginkgo biloba. There's a lot of herbal remedies, but I think kind of CBD and fish oil or DHA and fasting, ketones, prioritizing sleep, light. I was wearing blue light blocking glasses like 4 years ago. It really helped for screens, and now I'm really big in, I guess, what's called the quantum health space, which is all about light and circadian rhythm optimization as well. So yeah, I would say those are all really important foundations for
let's
healing your brain.
expand into that. Let's expand into that subject a little further.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all about, how important light is in dictating, your daily bodily functions and mechanisms in your brain. So, you wear the blue light blocking glasses to protect, for blue light, which can suppress melatonin production in the later half of the day. And just artificial light in general is linked with a lot of, bad things and cancer potentially down the road. But really it's confusing your body. It's confusing your brain, all these signaling pathways with artificial unnatural light that's been introduced in our environment, like only in the past, 40 years, but mostly like the past 10, 20 years. And then of course, natural light really being something you need to focus. So the best thing you can do for your sleep, right, is get outside first thing in the morning, get that near red infrared that you're getting with the sunrise that is kind of telling your body it's morning, let's have a cortisol release that should be high in the morning, and then, taper off towards the end of the day. And really it's all how our body dictates so many functions is based off light. And then of course, you get into, vitamin D synthesis through UVB and why that's important. And yeah, it's grounding and earthing, kind of natural anti-inflammatory, absorbing free electrons, getting connected. I'm all about it because I was always super into, nature, and this made a lot of sense to me. And yeah, I feel the worst. And even today, I feel the worst when I'm just staring at a screen all day, and especially my phone is even more so. But yeah, I have filters like on all my screens and have 10 different pairs of blue light blocking glasses.
You're speaking my language. He's speaking my language. So that's kind of what I spend a lot of my day on too. Is I'm fortunate that I get to practice in a way that most physical therapists don't always get to practice. So when I hear that, I mean, most patients look at me like I'm crazy when I'm like, half your homework is just like step outside and have a view of the horizon that's, just rising above. Do you ever use Golden Hour as an app to tell like critical light hours, like in the morning and at night?
No, I haven't heard of that. I'll have to check it out.
Let me see if I can find it. It's super cool.
But yeah, it's really simple, right? Like, and that's what I like is like the more you learn about health.
I gotta take my screen off. You keep talking.
Yeah. The more you learn about health, the more you realize you don't know, but then the more you realize at the same time that the things that are going to move the needle the most are really pretty simple. And a lot of it goes back to just understanding how, you know, humans were designed to live over, you know, and evolved over thousands of years. And yeah, connecting with the earth, the planet that we are on and we have evolved to live on, is one of the most important and easy things. And, you know, diet, obviously just eating real food, and you do that and you're already in the top 1%. You do those two things.
It's
Yeah,
free.
that's
I
worth,
think
go ahead.
I think that's the biggest key I was gonna say, is the change for us is free. Like, people need to have those first basic things that are, you know, low cost, low barrier of entry, and then obviously build in. And I think that's kind of where all four of us, technically in the corner, kind of started, is like, you need to find something that kind of moves the wheel, and then it can kind of get you into these further levels, I think, from just what I've seen.
Seriously, I honestly think everybody should hit rock bottom at least once in their life.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a good way, you know, not in a chaotic type way, but, you know, it's a lot of the times we don't know what we have until it's gone, you know, and a lot of the time some people get stuck with the same perspective and view on life, and they never get moved. And all it takes is, you know, one fall and you're seeing life at a different angle. So, you know, I think it's great, because at the end of the day, it shakes things up, and it's, you know, kind of reminds you, don't build a castle on sand. So
Yeah, 100%. I mean, both those points. When I was first getting into health, it really is easy to get sucked into, you know, the biohacking, buy
Yeah.
every gadget, buy every supplement. And I still have supplements in my room from like 2.5 years ago that I've just never used. It's crazy. It's like some people I know like are really, you know, they're big on supplements. It's like we need them to you know, account for these modern day, you know, toxins and things in our environment. And sure, that's fine, but it's like, if your foundation is not in order, like then you shouldn't even be worrying about that, because you think you can patch, you know, a cracked foundation with, you know, something that's so minuscule, but it could be really impactful if, you know, you have a specific case, or have everything else in line already. But yeah, also post as a person. And you know, there's a lot of people who are, they're extremely afraid to take risks. They're extremely comfortable in their sedentary lives, and it's probably the biggest issue with society. And that's the reason why they have this kind of mindset of just comfort and really just going with what the masses say or recommend, or what everyone else is doing. And it's hard to break out of this. I think it's probably the thing we all struggle with the most, is like, how do you get, you know, your normal friends or family to really more on the side of thinking that we're aligned with. And you have to show them, but, you know, you can't tell them too much information. They're just going to be lost in the weeds. But really, you know, there has to be some substantial reason or existential crisis, unfortunately, for most people to get on board. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear as well from you guys what you think is like effective ways of convincing normies to, you know, prioritize this. I mean, health is one thing, but, you know, the average person thinks health is, you know, eating chicken, rice, broccoli, and going to the gym, and that's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I think for me is you have to kind of climb the ladder of dissonance levels. So like, you know, there's always the levels like, you don't know what you don't know. You know that you don't know something, but you don't know where to find it. And then you seek out resources. So I think the biggest thing that I've found is when we can relate it to one small habit that we can agree upon that's changeable, is going to call into question almost everything else in life. And if you think that that's going to be the one change that is going to help, you know, affect a lot of their system, like we talked about, whether that's light or, you know, hey, maybe you wear blue light blockers before you go. And then as they start feeling better, they're like, what the heck? Because your body, as you know, operates in a homeostatic level of good, shitty, and shitty can just feel normal if you're always operating in shitty. So I think that one or two things that you can find as a linchpin habit that they can do over and over again, what I found in my practice, is then allows them to start questioning it. And then they come to you and be like, hey, I felt pretty good. Like, I wore these stupid, you know, orange glasses 3 hours before bed, and, you know, I slept through the night. Like, what's the deal with that? Like, I found it better that way than like, I'm like, more of the times, like when I start with you, I'm like, just try this. Like, wear it for a week, wear it for 2 weeks. Let's measure, you know, whether it's a small tracking app on your sleeping app or even your heart rate. Like, let's see what happens. And then usually that leads into a further discussion, because most of the time that small change that all three of us know probably going to do pretty well. Or it's a walk in the morning. But I found if you can find that one thing to start challenging kind of the beliefs and the conceptions, that starts that process. And it doesn't work for everybody, but that's kind of the beauty of trial and error with it from what I've seen. How about you, Sean? I know you've kind of had it from more of a sales perspective.
Yeah. Hitting on the diet and mental aspect, it's like owning a tea company. So many people would come up to me, hey, what I need to, can I drink this to get this? Or can I drink this and get healthy? And what I tell them all, it's not about what you add to your diet. It's about what you take out. If you eat Funyuns and Hot Pockets every day, nothing is going to, fix that problem and override that. So I used to always tell people, hey, let's take the bad stuff out. Let's build that nice, just simple base. And like you were speaking on earlier, some of the best medicines are the simplest stuff, so I like to just keep it simple with people and, go with that aspect. But on the mental side of red pilling people, I've been kind of in this battle for most of my life. And, a lot of people don't like to step outside the box and think, because every time they step out the box and they see one answer, it's going to create 20 more questions, and then 20 more questions, 20 more questions. And, with like me and you going through our situations, we were, just learning. We wanted to learn more, learn more, learn more. And not everybody has that energy. So to me, it gets kind of stressful for normies to kind of dive that deep down in rabbit holes, because it's one answer is going to create 100 questions. And on top of that, man, I mean, we got testosterone levels that's down at a low. We're just not the old Americans that we're known to be, that are ancestors. And and I see that trend changing in the future, but it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah, I think those are, you kind of got to just feel it out. And I like the one step at a time approach, but yeah, simple solutions. This is why I like the carnivore diet, I think, so successful, because it's like, just eat meat, like whatever, like that's it. And it's just like, well, people are like, well, I could do that, that's easy. It's like, you don't even have to worry about everything else. And that's why folks like Sean Baker and Anthony Chaffee are, they're like, yeah, we can get into the weeds of grass fed or grain fed and all this jazz, and whether you should have other things, eggs, dairy, whatever. But really, if they just eat meat, they're doing 99% better than what they were eating before. Because if, like you said, if they cut out all the junk, that's even more important. So yeah, I think simplicity and kind of building on it is the right way to go. But it's still hard. I mean,
oh yeah,
definitely.
It's still so challenging.
I got a quick question. Are you familiar with what is it? Electroculture, where they take copper, put it in the ground, and it takes the ether and the energy out, and it supersizes vegetables and plants?
I'm not familiar with that. No, with at least with produce. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. So years and years ago, where we seen giant like watermelons, cantaloupes, and people going to these shows, that was some of the techniques that they used. And I've been seeing a lot on it, man. You should definitely check it out. I think it's fascinating. I've been so busy with building businesses and doing so much stuff that I haven't really been able to dive deep in it. But yeah, I would love to see that long lost art brought back.
Yeah, I mean, I know my Earth Runners have a copper plug, and obviously that's connecting you to the earth and providing a channel for electron flow. So if you use that for farming, yeah, I mean, that's quite interesting. I believe it. I mean, that's it's energy you can tap into that's not, and that's like all about quantum health, right? It's like, yeah, there's energy you can tap into outside of just food. And I think people often miss that message that they can get energy outside of food. But we're all in a calories in, calories out still society. So
yeah, it's definitely interesting, as it says it like pulls energy from the atmosphere. And yeah,
I mean, I think that makes total sense. And that's kind of what leads into kind of one of the bigger things I was curious about for you, Tristan, is take us through that aspect of regenerative farming, because I feel like we hear it a lot and we hear it as a buzzword, but like, what is all those aspects? Because I think you touched on a point of the quantum side of things, not just being about calories in, calories out. Like, take us through that whole process of like what a true regenerative farming or regenerative food sourcing can actually mean.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a buzzword right now. It's
Yeah.
probably be totally greenwashed, by like this time next year. But regenerative, at least in terms, there's a livestock management, which is what I focus on. So, it could be called regenerative, holistic, adaptive, multi-paddock systems. These are all synonymous words. I mean, at the high level, really, a regenerative system is one that's emulating nature. Because nature is naturally sustainable, it's naturally very efficient, and it's naturally a cohesive environment that spurs that biodiversity. So, lots of life, and what it was for a long time. It's many different animal species, many different plant species, and that is the key to really having a highly functioning ecosystem below the ground. So most of the biodiversity is below the ground. It's in the soil. The microbes, the nematodes, the fungal networks. And if you have that, then you have a very high functioning system pushing nutrients, to the grass, to the forage that the animals are upcycling and then returning, via their excrements to the soil again. And you have this carbon cycle as well, with the soil pulling carbon from the atmosphere, and that's their token of currency of life, and then they're putting that back through the nutrients in the grass, like I mentioned. So it's this beautiful symphony of nutrients and exchange of carbon and everything. And yeah, you only get that when you have biodiversity. So what does it mean in a controlled system by humans? You want to rotate or have grazing techniques of livestock, because you don't want to overgraze areas. You want to graze them down enough, but allow them time to recover. And naturally, like bison, there's tens of millions of bison roaming the plains in North America that were being moved around by predators, by wolves and things. And they would be so tightly packed and they wouldn't leave a blade of grass unturned. But they might not come back to that pasture they were on for 2 years, for 5 years. I mean, it really depends. So there would be these huge rest periods, which allows, and then again, with their excrement and the pounding for their hooves into the soil, everything it's getting packed in. But then there's super long rest periods that allows that soil to recover and grow, and that soil just becomes so much healthier. So in a system today, and then you have other animals, of course, on there as well. And the parasite load is important, because if you have these long rest period, then the parasites are not going to survive. And you also have multi-species grazing, which is good for preventing parasitic infections. So you have this, symbiosis. So how we try and emulate that in a human controlled system is by multi-paddock, rotational adaptive grazing, where you're moving your ruminant animals or any animal kind of frequently, daily or at least multiple times a week, and then you're resting that pasture for at least 30 to 40 days, ideally even longer. I think 30 to 40 days like a minimum if you want to avoid like the parasitic life cycle, the larva life cycle. And allowing that pasture to kind of regenerate. That's where the term comes from, the soil to regenerate, and then it'll be stronger and have more nutrient, and then you just repeat. And over time, you can increase the organic matter in the soil. And why does all this matter is because the soil health right now is so poor, just from monocrop farming, from industrial type agriculture that we've been doing over the 20th century into the 21st century. So we've lost all of our organic matter in the soil, and that loses the ability for the soil to hold water. So then you need more inputs. It loses its resilience in storms. And, now we're killing everything in that ecosystem because we're spraying it with every herbicide, fungicide, Roundup, glyphosate, all that good stuff. because we only want to grow one plant, and that's more efficient, more higher yield. It's the industrial way of thinking about it. But in reality, long term, it doesn't work, because everything dies, the soil, dirt, and then eventually you get stagnating yields, and you, the only way you can keep it going is just pumping it full of more crap, and it's just not sustainable. So a regenerative system is one that is low input, high output, instead of high input, high output, that, you know, has some starting hurdles, but only because we put ourselves in this situation in the first place. So yeah, this is really what I'm definitely most passionate about. And I think it's something that everyone needs to get on board with. And I hope it doesn't just become a trendy buzzword. I hope actually people understand that these types of farming and, you know, ranching methods are critical for us to keep, you know, producing food at rates we do, and increasing, you know, nutrient density, like you could argue. And there's varying studies about the mineral content in all our produce that has gone down tremendously. It all plays a factor. And yeah, if you care about carbon emissions, which some people do, some people don't, you know, that's, soil is the biggest carbon sink we have on the planet.
So
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Eric.
yeah, my biggest question for this with Tristan is like, how would you, if you had control of whether it's the United States or the world population, how would you help this reach critical mass? Like, what would be kind of that tipping point if you had control to make the changes to make this, you know, sustainable throughout the world? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because we're so entrenched in the current modern industrial farming system. I mean, if I was in charge, I would immediately end all subsidies, because we've handed out over $100 billion in subsidies in the last like 30 years. So every, you know, why did we get to this point is because, you know, there was more and more government intervention. And, you know, a cool intersection is like what happened in 1971. Actually, this is the year Nixon appointed a Secretary of Agriculture in Earl Butz, who basically just full-fledged went huge on monocrop industrial grain farming so we could export it to Russia. And, you know, it eventually blew up in the US's face. And then we had to start introducing subsidies after a farming crisis in the 80s, and just further consolidation. So in reality, like, farmers are growing these crops because they're getting a guaranteed income from the government. Like, even if a hailstorm destroys all their crops, they're still getting paid. And they just listen to, you know, USDA and big ag, you know, bodies on what they should do. And it's like, yeah, buy all these, you know, chemical inputs, and, you know, plow the land and all this, and you'll get your guaranteed income, and you'll be safe. But if we did away with all of that stuff, you know, a more regenerative system that prioritizes, you know, quality and nutrient density, would be far more competitive in the market. Like, food prices have been held so artificially low. Like, people are freaking out about like eggs, for example, right? Oh my God, eggs cost like $7 a dozen for like quality eggs. You know, that's not even that expensive. I mean, if people spent more of their budget on food, and they realize how valuable it is, and how they're actually, if you look at the dollar per nutrient, like, yeah, a pound of grass-fed ground beef could be $10. So that's, you know, quite expensive per ounce. But in reality, it's like the same dollar per ounce as like a bag of Doritos or some other processed crap. And you're getting how many magnitudes more of nutrients. So people really need to be spending more of their budget on food, and probably less on useless shit like alcohol, drugs. I mean, just like any day, you know, accessories. But it's been held so artificially low because these monocrop industrial products are subsidized and just grown in such vast quantities that, you know, the processed foods can be extremely cheap. So I think, you know, what I would do, yeah, is I would get rid of subsidies. I would, you know, try and break up these big food conglomerates, and incentivize, you know, folks to move to more regenerative systems. The carbon credits is very controversial. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's interesting, and we're already seeing this in like Canada. Like, companies are going to be required to have a carbon neutral, you know, balance sheet, basically. So how do you become carbon neutral as a, giant multi-billion-dollar company? You just buy carbon credits from someone who has them. So it's, a giant facade of like carbon neutrality. But, as a regenerative farmer, you can actually get carbon credits if you prove, your system is, rehabilitating the land. You're not doing traditional farming methods. You're not like tilling the soil, and you're actually growing the organic matter content. You can get carbon credits for this and sell them to like Bill Gates and all his friends and all the people in Canada that need them. So that's interesting, right? I don't know how I feel about it, with the whole ESG movement, but it's something that could incentivize more, regenerative systems, I would say. But in general, it needs to be, a decentralized movement. It needs to happen. It needs to be scaled in replication, not vertically. So how do you do that? You incentivize consumers to prioritize quality. So education, you break up subsidies, and, you hope that, producers who are struggling right now realize that if they do take a risk, it'll be worth it in, 2 to 5 years.
Dang, dude. I mean, this is kind of, you got me really thinking about this too now, is when the gold standard got taken away, was that pretty much in parallel with this farming crisis starting as well?
Yeah, so there's a lot of parallels, like I said, in 1971. So the industrial farming movement, it was already ongoing, right? From World War II. It was kind of like feed the world, the population, we're not going to be able to sustain it. We're not going to be able to feed it. World War II, it's like, just churn out crops and everything. And that started that was kind of the major switch, major first switch. And then in 1971, like I was talking about, there's even more so, and that's when we didn't really export food or grains in general until like the 70s. And there was this huge grain surplus. We started exporting it, and then there was these droughts, so it kept the prices high, and we making a boatload of money as a country. And then obviously if you have high supply and the prices aren't going to stay high forever, so that came crashing down after they told everyone to go big and buy more land, buy more products, take out loans to expand. And then, what happened in the 70s, inflation and interest rates skyrocketed. So many, farmers went bankrupt, and further consolidation happened, more government intervention because they had to step in and save everyone. And then, we get subsidies and all this fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, the way I see it in general, right, at a high level, and I write about this in the book, it's like when you go up the gold standard and you go fully fiat, right? Like what is the one thing that props up a fully fiat broken monetary system? It's just continued economic growth year on year. It's this insatiable desire in all facets of the economy to grow, to maximize profits. Because if you're not like beating inflation with growth, then you're screwed. So this happens in every industry, and especially the food system, right? Like every year, that's why you get more of this factory-based garbage. You get, plant-based foods, lab-based meat. You get all the processed stuff because you can scale that. You have inputs that you can control. You can bring costs down, and your manufacturing can expand and scale. So that's how you keep growing year on year. You just make more crap, and then you deliver it to people. They don't even cook anymore. And then that's another area of economic growth. So for me, that's like our food system is the most fiat thing imaginable currently. Yeah. And we need to get back to, a hard form of money and, real food, of course.
Yeah. I seen today that we're having a couple senators talk about doing the gold standard again, or gold backed. So that's being talked about today. So that's really interesting. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they're sitting here year after year chasing infinite growth with finite elements. I mean, it's just a mathematical equation that will not work itself out. So sooner or later, we're going to have to run this thing off the cliff. And something what Eric said earlier, it's them keep raising interest rates, keep making these moves, sending money out of the economy. It's like they're trying to run it off the cliff.
Their margin for error right now is just so low. Like they're trying to thread a needle. I mean, inflation, hyperinflation, deflation are both on the table probably the next 5 years. And it's tough, right? Because people with money, investors, all they want to do is beat inflation and save their money, or else, they're screwed. So they sit in front, every company sits in front of their shareholders every quarter. And if they don't post, huge gains, it's like expectation is 10% growth year on year minimum. Like, that's ridiculous. That is just like, how sustainable is that? I mean, and if you're back on a gold standard, it's more of a slow growth over time. And what's really unfortunate is when you have this just rush for growth and need all the time, innovation, creativity all gets pushed to the wayside, and all you care about is cost optimization and scaling manufacturing. And that's like the corporation I work for currently is doing the same exact thing, and it's crazy to watch it like firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the parallel of all the intersections, because you see it. I mean, I come from a healthcare background. It's the same thing, the corporatization and the optimization of, people becoming numbers. I think that's the biggest thing we run into, is we lose sight of, like you talked about, humanity, nature, all of those things. So no, what you're speaking is just, it's super wonderful to hear, because I think that's what people need to hear, is like, there is a way out. And I think it's when people take that stand and be that one person that helps spread out that message, is where things are going to change. Like, that's the decentralization structure you spoke about previously.
Yeah. And I think really people don't understand how much influence they have at the consumer purchasing power level. Like, everyone gets so focused on, like, who they're voting for on the election cycle in November. And in reality, it doesn't even fucking matter. Like, yeah, maybe there's a couple good senators, like you're saying, putting in gold standard bills, whatever. But at a high level, that's not even going to get through anywhere. I mean, there's no chance like that'll happen. It's a nice thought. There's some cool representatives in our system, but in the reality, you have so much more influence and impact by what you buy every day. And if you think about it, right, like, in what facets of your life can you actually like support a local producer or something smaller, decentralized? Like, you can't buy a phone from a startup or a small company in your town. It doesn't work. You buy from Apple, you buy from Samsung, whatever, Google. You can't buy a car from, a small local company. I mean, maybe in some places, but I highly doubt it. And what do you buy, the most often? And besides, something like that, it's food. And food is something you can directly buy from a local producer. You don't have to go spend it at a multinational like grocery store chain. Or even if you do, there's probably better options there. And really, if you keep that money in your local economy by paying a local producer, then it's a win-win for everyone. So I think people really need to get this idea that it's okay. Like, it's worth it. It's the benefit for you to pay more to keep it local and keep someone afloat who's really, putting their heart and soul into, doing something right, even though it's probably so hard for them to even be in the green. It is worth it. So I think people really need to get on board with that. And that probably makes the biggest difference, I would say. And we've already seen how, like, the last 5 years, I mean, just healthy quality products are clearly the trend. I mean, there's a lot of greenwash BS out there now, but just look at what's in stores, like, compared to 10 years ago. Like, there's so many more options now with, like, just better ingredients, and there's companies are taking advantage of that because people are willing to pay for it now. Like, they will pay for quality. And I hope more producers and more companies take note of this. I always try to be more optimistic. I know a lot of people in this space are like, yeah, the world needs to end for everything to like get back to normal. But yeah, I think it's education on the consumer level can really dictate market trends and changes.
Definitely. And as you was hitting on, decentralization, it will be very important in the future. With these centralized institutions and markets, all we're seeing is, infinite growth. Well, if we start instituting decentralized system, growth really is not the main aspect. So it's going to be very interesting. A lot of work is going on behind the scenes in the decentralized world right now. I've been diving deep. I don't know if you could see it, but this is my book that's going to be releasing soon.
Nice.
And yeah, man, I'm just trying. I think decentralization is the key. Government, business, all the above. So I'm pretty excited, and I'm pretty optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Yeah, yeah. I was just in Switzerland, and it was like a crazy contrast to like how the US works in terms of like everything's run at like the state level. Like, yeah, they have high taxes, but it's all like at the state level, and the states are basically almost their own full separate entities. They like bring everyone in the town hall to like vote on everything. And, you know, if not everyone's in agreement, nothing, you know, it doesn't happen. And politicians are just like some average Joe in the town, and they don't, you know, they're not rich, and they try and take money, then they just get voted out. And it was pretty cool to get that experience. But yeah, obviously the US is a lot more complicated. I think the opportunity is there. I almost think, yeah, we could see more division at the state level, but yeah, it's going to take a lot of change at the federal level. There's just too much, you know, canoodling with big corporations and politicians and lobbying. And I write about all this in the book. And that was like the biggest eye opener for me, is like how much money these companies are paying in lobbying, how much they're paying in fines and violations, how much they pay in advertising. And, you know, everyone gets so worked up about the media. It's like, oh, I mean, that's who pays the media. So like, obviously they're going to say what's in the interest of the people funding their network, whether that's, you know, left leaning, right leaning, it doesn't even matter. But it's just so easy to just follow the money, and then you understand why the narratives are painted in the way they are, and that's it. I mean, once you realize that, you're like, oh, okay, this all makes sense.
Exactly. And hit on a point that you made. I think that that's the road that we're ultimately going to end up taking. I think we're going to implode the federal government and get back to state governments. So I think Biden is helping with that. You know, with pretty much making himself look like an ass every day and making everyone hate him. I think we need to get rid of the federal government and go to state governments, because each state and territory is such a different and customized environment. To have some central power just dictate same policy over everything, just, I mean, it's not working out. So yeah, I think it's about time to change. Hopefully it happens in the future.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
I will have to see. And I think that's a perfect segue, I guess, from our end too, is we've had this kind of awesome overall picture of regenerative farming. Did you kind of find, whether it's decentralized money, decentralized currency, whatever you want to call it, did you find that during this process because it parallels so beautifully, like how you're talking about from that start to finish? Like, was that something afterwards? Was that during kind of the same discovery, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was into crypto kind of like early on in college, you know, tech student and just trying to make money. It was cool, blockchain, whatever. And then, you know, I really hyper focused, and I learned the hard way during like the bear market, just lost money, and, you know, realized shit coins are a thing. And during 2020, I just was like, wow, like it actually clicked on why Bitcoin, you know, fundamentally different from all other cryptocurrencies, and really has the power to, you know, be a global reserve asset potentially, and dictate change. And yeah, from there, it just made a lot of sense. And I was seeing a lot of these overlaps and parallels, and I was like, wow, okay, like this is, you know, it's all connected. And, you know, we could start like providing value even at a higher level, like say if you want to pay your regenerative rancher in Bitcoin, then you're exchanging value for value, right? Like if you understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin and why it's different from a monetary perspective from any fiat currency. And another thing is the low time preference, right? Like Bitcoiners and folks in general. Another major issue with our society is it's so short time preference. Everything is, you know, 30 seconds, dopamine, serotonin hits, like social media, TikTok. I mean, people really are living in like 1 week increments, and they're like, oh, I just got to make it to Friday beers. Like, it's just the rescue of my life. And it's so sad, because if you start thinking on like 5-year time frames and making decisions on a daily basis on that, you're like, yeah, I know the work I put in now is not going to give a substantial change by Saturday, but you know, that work will compound, and in 5 years I'll be where I want to be. And I'm okay grinding, and, you know, I'm okay. Like Bitcoin, I don't know what the price is going to be in a month or 2 months or next week, but like in 5 years, guarantee it's going to be worth more and a lot more, because there's no way the Fed is going to completely just change, their stance on anything. And they've just, the system's so broken that, the devaluation of fiat money is just going to continue.
Mhm.
So health is the same way. And if you realize that, you're putting in this investment and, higher ROI activities, it's going to pay off in the long term. So I think producers are aligned with that. There's a lot of initiatives going on, paying your ranchers and producers in Bitcoin, and I'm all for it, because it's an exchange of value for value, and kind of spreads education to another group of people who probably wouldn't really be like into this stuff on the cutting edge, but in reality the principles are aligned.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful intersection. Is that kind of where, when you talk about a 5-year timeline, is that kind of where things are merging for your career path as well? I know you mentioned some changes that you're looking to potentially make in your life. Is that kind of 2 intersections that are going to happen in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I'm trying to get more, full time in regenerative agriculture, or just in the food industry. Growing my personal brand and doing things at the same time as well. And I really enjoy writing. I think the book was an awesome experience. I mean, even if I sold 2 copies, it would have been a success for just how much I learned and put out there, and the connections I've made and people I've talked to, like you guys today, has just been invaluable, and it's fantastic. And I'm just excited for it all to continue. And yeah, I mean, I have a vision, like 5-10 years, I would love to have, eventually, live off my own land and kind of just grow my own food, totally be in control, connected with nature, to raise a family. That's the ultimate goal. But how I get there in the next 5 years, we'll see. But I'm just going to keep on working on the things that I love to do, and that I think will make a difference in our community and our society. That's the goal.
Amazing, man. Sean, do you have any big questions, any burning last minute questions for Tristan? I don't want to keep him too long.
No. I was pretty much just going to ask him, what's the things coming up next for you? Any new projects? Are you going to be building into cryptocurrency or on blockchain? Or are you just going to keep it simple?
Yeah, so I have the book is released. I actually just finished updating the 2nd edition manuscript, so the audio book should be out like next week. I mean, or this week even. It's in review, so the audio book will be released. Was working on that past 3 months, so that's exciting. Hopefully it reaches a new market. Working on a podcast of myself with my one friend as well. So excited to talk to more people in the space. It's gonna be focused on decentralization, kind of just educating people in all facets of life and how to kind of take control in all aspects. A lot of focus on health and finance, of course, but might have some other things in there as well. Potentially, working more with the bison ranch in Wyoming. So I sell bison for them currently. So if any of your listeners are interested, you could check out fallsfamilyranches.com. 100% grass-fed bison meat, and you can Tristan 10 will get you 10% off your first order. But working on doing more stuff like selling broth and more value-added products, and doing the marketing and just building my personal brand for there. And yeah, I'm trying to figure out as well, how I can start writing more. I mean, I'm mostly on Twitter in terms of social media, and that's been going well, but thinking of branching out. And I have another book that I would like to write in the next 5 years, let's say. I don't know what it is, but I really enjoy that process. So yeah, a lot of things going on. Kind of priorities change, but there's always, fun stuff to work on, I would say.
Definitely, man. That's really cool that you're a high value person. You like keep developing, keep evolving, and it kind of comes back to that situation you had with your accident, and your health and your future was in your hands, and you took action and you kept that momentum up. And look at you, you wrote a book, you're in the top level of your life. And dude, I really respect and admire that, man. So keep up the good work. Definitely an inspiration for a lot of people out there. And yeah, man, we should definitely link back up soon.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you guys as well. It's yeah, this has been great chat, and I think we're all super aligned on values, and I think we can all, it's exciting to just meet, folks, our age in this space that are really working on solutions and education to make a difference in society, and just gets me fired up. So yeah, I really appreciate that. It's so true, and same goes to you guys.
Amazing, man. Hey, Johnny, I'm not sure if you're done with your shoot. Do you have any big questions for Tristan? He must still be recording. That's totally fine. I know you mentioned Twitter, Tristan. Where can our followers find you? What are the biggest spots they can come find you at?
Yeah, so Twitter is most common where I post. It's at Bitcoin and _ beef. So that's Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. My personal is like Tristan _ health. I also have an Instagram for the book, which is just Bitcoin and beef. And yeah, that's about it. Not on TikTok, and I don't think I'm going to join TikTok, so that's okay.
Me neither.
We are just fine on that. Well, again, man, it's such a pleasure to have you. I'm glad we finally got to connect. We just want to be really appreciative of your time. I know it's a time crunch when you're running all over the place, so we really appreciate that. But any big parting words, anything else that you want to bestow upon everybody before I sign off?
No, I think, yeah, my book is Bitcoin and Beef. The audiobook will be out, second edition. So it's on Amazon. Unfortunately, got to support centralized Amazon, but actually the process is pretty decentralized to self-publish. And, it's pretty easy to write a book and publish it yourself if you just go for it. And yeah, I think the mindset that we all share here can be, really powerful, and hopefully that message continues to spread. So keep doing what you guys are doing. And thanks so much for having me on.
Amazing, man. Well, we're just going to sign off from the HealthFi podcast. I want to wish everyone a great night, and we'll look forward to more.